Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's Pyromancer here, and welcome back to my channel. Hope you're having a wonderful day, morning, evening, afternoon, whatever time it is, wherever you are in the world. And it's finally time. We're going to talk about Xal'atath and Sylvanas. So if you guys aren't aware, if you haven't seen Bellular's video already, I know he's already covered this, but at BlizzCon this year, in the What's Next panel for World of Warcraft, they showed a slide with some of the, faction leaders in it, Saurfang, Sylvanas, Jaina, and Anduin. And something peculiar caught the attention of a lot of people, obviously. Blizzard didn't try to hide it. They even kind of pointed it out, because they certainly didn't want us to miss it. And that was that Sylvanas was holding Naifu, the Blade of the Black Empire. Why? That's what we're going to talk about today. Let's get into it. So just to give you a little bit of history on Xal'atath, it's essentially a dagger that holds sentience, as there was some type of living sentient creature stored within it. There's been speculation that this creature, Xal'atath, is an old god. I still do not necessarily subscribe to this idea. There was some data mined text that came out of the PTR, and one of the things that is said is apparently from Magni Bronzebeard, who says another old god awakened. We assume that this is being said about Xal'atath, but I don't know if we have enough proof of that yet. Xal'atath appears out of the blade as a void elf, which I think is very interesting. Why is Sylvanas holding her? Because, or at least holding this empty husk of the dagger. I would assume that Xal'atath is, by the time that Sylvanas acquires the dagger, not in the dagger anymore. Now in Bellular's video, he kind of suggests that perhaps the weapon can be used as a containment cell, essentially, right? And I mean, I think that it's pretty evident that we've been shown that this is true. Xal'atath was seemingly locked within the blade. The point is that it seems that it can be used as a vessel to hold something. Now, again, Bellular is suggesting that this is going to be used against N'Zoth by Sylvanas. Now, there's been some speculation in the community on who Sylvanas is following. There are some that think that Sylvanas is basically a minion of N'Zoth. I think that it's possible, but I don't think that we have enough to suggest it fully yet. There are some that aren't really sure who she's a follower of. I think, again, in Bellular, in his video, I'm going to refer to him a lot, because he takes quite a particular interest in Xal'atath and Sylvanas, is that he kind of identified in his video some entities of death. The reason that this was done is because there's a quest line where you take Vol'jin's soul, and you go around with him and you try to figure out who told him to make Sylvanas the war chief. Now you go to Aegir. She is basically not a fan of Bwonsamdi, so she's not a big fan of Talanji coming into her temple with you. And Vol'jin speaks to her, and essentially we learn that Vol'jin has had his soul touched by the hand of valor.
But know that deception will be met with destruction.
Queen of the Valkyrie, my spirit was sent to the other side, then returned. Was this your doing?
Shadowhunter, you are no longer a mere spirit. What you have become is something beyond my power to forge.
Who be having such power? Could it be the same one who bid me to name Sylvanas war chief?
You have been touched by the hand of valor. Such a noble force does not scheme for mortal thrones.
So, whoever whispered to me is not the same as who sent me back.
You have been granted all the knowledge I am willing to share. Leave now and never return.
Now this, first of all, just kind of immediately makes me think Odin, but Odin is not on the other side, or whatever the case may be. As far as we know, Odin went back to Ulduar after the events of the Halls of Valor, or Trial of Valor, whatever the fuck it is, where we defeat Helya. So if it wasn't Odin, this hand of valor that is far and above beyond what Aegir is capable of doing is kind of an interesting question that we'll come back to. You also go to Bwonsamdi. Bwonsamdi didn't do it. Bwonsamdi believes that Sylvanas kind of disrupts the balance. This is the same thing that the Lich King says when you go to the Lich King, Bolvar 4 Dragon, he speaks about, oddly enough, very calmly, like we just waltz into the Lich King's place, like no problem. Hey, we're just here to see you, Bolvar, how's it going? I thought that was kind of weird, but we just go up to the top, and Bolvar basically says, nah, Vol'jin, your spirit walked on the other side. Not in like the spirit shadow land kind of thing, you know, the little spirit realm that we go to when we die, but you went to the other side, and you've been altered in ways that you don't even understand. However, Bolvar says it wasn't me. You know, again, Sylvanas is doing work to disrupt the balance. So, whatever that means, we're not exactly sure. I assume this is the balance of life and death. Previously, I would have been under the assumption that that life was outbalancing death, because I think that there are quite a few different kind of underworlds or afterlives in WoW that are aligned with different cultures. Right, whatever Thros in the Blighted Lands is, the Emerald Dream in Nightmare, which, according to a Lost Codex interview with Alex Afrasiabi, he essentially says that Thros, so the Blighted Lands, is an offshoot of the realm of Nightmare, the realms of death, he refers to them as, which I think is very interesting. Obviously, you have Helheim, etc. You have all these places, and it seems like no matter what they are, it always seems like it's a bad thing for the dead souls to go there, which I think is rather peculiar, because generally the idea of death and what it is, you would kind of think, you know, like they get to go to their afterlife, to their, you know, whatever it is. Like the Halls of Valor is technically even an afterlife, right? So I think that there are certainly some afterlives that have some positive things in them, but it sort of seems like a lot of times when it comes to, you know, Helheim and that type of thing, that those are like very, very bad places or whatever the case may be. So hopefully we can learn more about those. But you go to all these people, the Lich King, Bwonsamdi, and Aer, and none of them are the ones that did anything to Bwonsamdi, or to Vol'jin rather. So this only leaves us really a couple of options, right? I mean, you have N'Zoth, who, you know, the old gods are pretty well known for whispering, and given that Vol'jin had this whispered to him, I find that a bit peculiar. And Bellular essentially leaves the question, is there this third party of death, like another individual or group who is responsible for death that we're not really, you know, that we're not aware of? And I love Bellular to death, man, great video, but man, it seems so fucking obvious to me that there is a very huge, there's an entire faction that is aligned with death and destruction and rage and hatred. And they're called the Burning Legion, right? So when we talk about who Sylvanas is doing this stuff for, and we'll get back to the Xal'atath thing in a minute, when we talk about who she's doing this stuff for, to me, I think there's a lot of hints. The first hint that I will kind of throw out there is that Sylvanas is, by what the way that she exists as a banshee, that is a byproduct of something that the Lich King, Arthas Menethil, he wasn't, I don't believe he was yet the Lich King, he was wielding Frostmourne though. Arthas Menethil was a pawn of the Burning Legion and turned Sylvanas into what she is right now. That's his fault. The reason for which she is even the Banshee Queen and is able to do some of the things that she does is because of Arthas Menethil, right? The second hint, I think, is that later on in Legion, when you're fighting Gul'dan, on the Horde side, and I believe he might even say it on the Alliance side, he essentially says, your pathetic Horde is going to fall to dust, and in the end, so in the end, what does that even mean from Gul'dan? In the end, I think the end of the world, so you know, the end of all things, the end of time, I think that Gul'dan is suggesting the end of the world. In the end, death will inherit this world. That doesn't sound good. And she will be waiting. And she will be waiting, huh? I think that the she in this situation, there could be a couple options. She being the world, Azeroth could be waiting for death, which is very sad. It could be, you know, Queen Ashara. Maybe Queen Ashara is waiting for death to inherit the world so she can start making her moves. But I think the most likely is Sylvanas. Because, and I will continue to drive this home and just keep asserting this, Argus the Unmaker, this unknown secret titan we didn't know anything about, it's not mentioned in Chronicle, none of that, happens to have the game files, Death Titan. In front of everything that has anything to do with Argus in the files for the game is Death Titan. I do believe that Argus the Unmaker is basically the Reaper. Like the death entity for the Titans. Like that thing, that dude, whatever, he's like, it's like, sort of like Hades, but not really, because Hades wasn't death, but Argus literally wields a scythe, right? I think that Argus could very well be death. And I think that there's a very particular reason why Sargeras had an interest in Argus. Argus was Sargeras' solution to existence, an end to all things. And we learn by simply reading what Magni is telling you in the instance of Antorus the Burning Throne, that the reason for which we take Argus's world soul to the seat of the Pantheon is so that we can disconnect Sargeras from Argus. This is something that we see done in the opening cutscene when we take the soul there. The Titan Pantheon siphons into it, or out of it, whatever the fuck they're doing. And this seems to have an effect on him. Now, the thing is that when Sargeras, in the mythic version of the fight, which is supposed to be canon, in the mythic version of the fight, at the end, Sargeras seems to establish some type of reconnection with Argus momentarily for a little bit, and Argus's skin turns black, and his armor is red, and his abilities go from being very re-origination aligned to apocalypse. Like, it's apocalyptic. It is like the fucking end of the world, right? Like, the apocalypse in Apocalypse's modules, that's not something that we should take lightly. This is like Judgment Day of the gods type shit. Like, I don't know if it really registers with a lot of people what we did on the seat of the Pantheon, but we did some serious shit. Like, that's some pretty incredible feats that we had accomplished there. But even still, Sargeras plunged his sword into the world. Now, when you take that mythic version of Argus and those textures and those colors, and you combine, or compare that rather, to the energy that is flowing out of the sword in Silithus before we pulled it all out, it's the same. And again, I think that this is enough evidence to assert that that sword had some of the power of Argus within it. It had, I think it had death in it. Like, that's what the whole blade was death and apocalypse and black and red horrible. It's very similar to the Nightmare, ironically. And it's now being suggested that the Nightmare could be connected to the realms of death. And I've said this before. I think that the Rift of Aln could be a bridge between the Shadowlands and the Dream that allows the corruption of the Shadowlands to seep into the Dream and try to destroy it. But I digress. And then all of a sudden, we have Azerite popping up all over the world, which, even though it looks to be arcane and light, basically the two semblances of order, right? Representations of order, it's causing nothing but chaos and war and destruction. And Sylvanas immediately recognizes this will change everything. And Sylvanas immediately starts going on this offensive. She's doing something. She has an ulterior motive that's being mentioned but not revealed to us. It's very obvious to me that Sylvanas is doing something that we're not aware of. Now, I do think this is very interesting, because think back to what I said about Gul'dan. He said, in the end, death will inherit this world, and she will be waiting. And as soon as death, this big-ass sword of bad, gets stuck into the planet by Sargeras, Sylvanas starts doing shit. What? That's hilariously well-timed. So does Ashara. But still, at this point, I think that Sylvanas' red glowing eyes, her burning down a world tree, this being identified by Dalaran Summermoon as an act of hatred and rage, right? This, to me, sounds very Burning Legion-esque. And so you see where I'm going with this now, right? We have this question of who are the forces of death in WoW. People are like, oh, it's Bonsamdi, Muzala, whatever the fuck it is, you know, hell yeah. The Lich King, but there has to be something so much higher than that. Because you think about, what is the representation for life? Right, you have the wild gods, you got demigods like Aviana. You have, you know, things like Chi-Ji and the Jade Spirit. You have all this stuff, the Dream, but who's at the tippy top of life? Eonar. It always seems to go back to the Titans. You have all these demons, these really bad guys, right? They're evil and malevolent or whatever the fuck. And then their leader at the very tippy top, who's the leader of the Legion? It's a Titan. All of these powerful entities on Azeroth, and all of them fall under Azeroth. Like, I just think that it seems to me that the primal forces and their representations are represented primarily by Titans. And I think that the form that a Titan appears in is important, but I think that all of death falls under Argus. That's the point. I think that the tippy top totem pole death is Argus, and so for Argus to be, whether by his own will or not, working with or for the Legion, or at least being used as a tool for the Legion, I think that for Sylvanas to be serving death and enacting death's will, I think that this could be representative of Sylvanas, whether she's aware of it or not, working for the Burning Legion. And there's more to suggest this. Think about the Varamathras quotes, what Varamathras says to you. I pretty recently made a video about this. Varamathras has some interesting dialogue that he gives to the Horde and to the Alliance. Let me read it to you real quick. This is what Varamathras says to the Alliance. So, your alliance still endures, longer than I expected. Though she has already planted the seeds of its downfall. She is patient, that one. When your thrones run red with betrayal, when your holy places burn and the shattered mask hangs above your hearth, only then will you know. And it will be too late. It matters not. You are blind to the true darkness closing in around you. And then for the Horde, so she found me at last, sent her underlings to finish the job. Tell me, when she seized your throne of hides and bones, was your allegiance forced? No. I'd wager you surrendered it willingly. Or were convinced you did. It matters not. You are blind to the darkness in your midst. So this is very interesting because what this is kind of showing is that Varamathras knows. Varamathras is in some... I don't know if he's clairvoyant or Varamathras knows the plan. If he's aware of it. I don't know what the fuck is going on here, but when he says... She has already planted the seeds of its downfall. She is patient, that one. In the Portuguese translation for this, he says she is patient, that elf. When your thrones run red with betrayal. I don't know what's going on there, but we'll have to see what happens to the Alliance. When your holy places burn. Teldrassil. And the shattered mask hangs above your hearth, only then will you know. And it'll be too late. To the Horde, he talks about, when she seized your throne of hides and bones, was your allegiance forced? No, it wasn't. When Sylvanas took the throne, we just kind of gave it to her, because Vol'jin said to. No, I'd wager you surrendered it willingly. And Varamathras knows. How could Varamathras possibly know? How could this Dreadlord that works for the Burning Legion know about that? There's only two ways. It's either the Dreadlords are in with the old gods, which is possible, or Sylvanas is in with the Legion. She's either working for the old gods, and Varamathras knows, or she's working for the Legion, and Varamathras knows. Something is guiding along the hand of fate here. Something is happening, and we're pretty blind to whatever it is. I want to finish with this, then I'll go back to the Xal'atath thing, because I think it's very important to talk about what the plan is with her. I know I'm on quite a tangent here, but just bear with me. Vol'jin is touched by the hand of valor, right? Now, valor is a very interesting term, because I think a lot of people think valor is a lot like honor, but it's not. Valor is great courage in the face of danger, especially in battle. Now, while I don't think that Sargeras is terribly honorable, I don't think that he is necessarily excluded from being valorous. Sargeras, even if he is afraid, he is still courageous. Even when he is facing, trying to destroy the Void Lords and trying to defeat them, he in battle, as the greatest warrior, probably in the universe, he is incredibly valorous. Not necessarily honorable, but he's a badass. Sargeras is a fucking badass, whether you like him or not. And so for Vol'jin to be touched by the hand of valor, where he died at the tomb of Sargeras, right on the broken shore, at the hand of demons, Sylvanas is then appointed war chief, right? This isn't the first... I want to remind people, not just old gods whisper to people. Demons do it too. Kil'jaeden did a lot of weird whispering and dream manipulation in Ner'zhul, unfortunately. Poor guy, right? I don't think that it's far-fetched that Sargeras could do something similar. Especially at the Tomb of Sargeras, the point at which the Legion's world of Argus is literally bridged to Azeroth. Like, there is a connection being made there, and I don't think that it's far-fetched for Sargeras to influence through there. Now, a lot of people will probably say, Pyro, the Burning Legion is over. That storyline is over. We defeated them. No, we didn't. We didn't defeat the Burning Legion. When you defeat somebody, generally, they don't accomplish their goal, right? They don't get to do what they wanted to do. So, for him to get his sword in the planet, that's not a win. That's not a defeat. I think that that was the final act, the final thing that needed to be done, and seems like the sword, whatever it was meant to do, is causing some problems. So it's been hinted to us that the world's not healing very well, all this shit. I do think, I'm just going to go back to it, man. I think that Sylvanas Windrunner is working for the Burning Legion, and I don't know if she even knows it. I assume that she does, enacting the will of death and going on really this kind of mad crusade. It's another point that I should probably touch on, right? Sargeras is called the Mad Titan, the Fallen Titan. He's completely insane, right? Well, the Forsaken are mad too, all of them. Even if a little bit, even if only just a little bit, they are all mad. And I'm pretty sure Sylvanas is mad as fuck. And not like, again, not like angry mad, but madness. Like brains are deteriorating, you're going mad type shit. So I do think that that's happening to Sylvanas, and I think that Sargeras' mad burning crusade is very similar to what Sylvanas' current goal seems to be. Now back to Xal'atath. What's she gonna do with it? What's the point? Well, do I think that she's serving the old gods? No. Do I think it's possible? Yes. Do I think whether I want it to be right or not? Do I think it's likely? Yes. Unfortunately, I don't want Sylvanas to have that, but Blizzard has insisted that this storyline would not be the same as Garrosh at all. Of course, there'd be certain similarities, but not the same end result. And I hold faith in them in that. I do believe that that is the case. I don't think we're going to have to kill Sylvanas Windrunner. I do have some ideas for what could happen to her, like, I don't know, becoming the new queen of the Valkyr or something like that. But I think that she's probably going to use that weapon, Xal'atath, as a vessel to trap something. Do I think that it will be N'Zoth? I'm not sure. Illyria Windrunner had a vision when she was swimming in the void for the first time with Locust Walker that she would kill the Great Sleeping One at the bottom of Azeroth's waves, like hiding under the waves or whatever, and that she would take its place. Now again, I mentioned at the start that Xal'atath is apparently a void elf, at least appears in that form. Well, Illyria Windrunner is also a void elf, and Illyria seems to be, or is seemingly going to be a huge problem for Sylvanas. Sylvanas already thought about killing her sisters once. So, what if Xal'atath is used to not imprison N'Zoth, because I think N'Zoth is probably far too powerful of an entity. I don't think that that will work. What if it was used to imprison Illyria? What if Sylvanas slew her own sister with that blade? I don't know what the consequences of that would be. I don't know if Illyria would start whispering to you through Xal'atath, the blade. I don't know. But there is one thing I can say about the blade that I don't know if a lot of people have talked about. I recently played the game Call of Cthulhu, and obviously there's no way that Blizzard is modeling WoW off of this other game, but that other game is modeled heavily from H.P. Lovecraft's story, The Call of Cthulhu. It's actually this thing, almost the exact same premise. And in that story, there's an amulet that you acquire, key to R'lyeh, the sunken city where Cthulhu, the dead Cthulhu, waits dreaming. And it is a key, this necklace. And then you have a dagger, a special dagger that's supposed to be used in a ritual that raises Cthulhu and raises R'lyeh. It's such a weird word to say. R'lyeh, from the ocean, the bottom of the ocean. So right now it looks like Xal'atath is going to be this key to light our path forward, as per the Datamind text. But what exactly that means, we'll have to see. So, I don't know, maybe it's some crazy shit where, like, Illyria is this oracle, it is meant that on her third death that she'll usher in their coming. I mean, Illyria has said that she felt like she's already died twice, and Il'gynoth has the whisper, at the hour of her third death, she ushers in our coming. So maybe it's talking about Illyria. I don't know. I think there's a lot of really interesting stuff that we need to consider. I'm gonna go on a bit of a ramble here, but the Sunwell, as soon as Illyria got near it, it reacted with whatever these void entities were on the other side, these ethereals, right? There's a whisper from Il'gynoth that says, its surface blazes bright, masking shadows below. I think that could very well be talking about the Sunwell. The surface of the Sunwell blazes bright. It masks the shadows that are below, because light will always cast shadow. So, I'm interested to see what that exactly means. Given that Velen did put the core of Anaru into the Sunwell, I think that it's very possible that we could have some problems. There is literally a leak that there's a Silvermoon Warfront. There's literally a run command that you can type into the game chat that will make it show up as a Silvermoon Warfront. Literally appears in the chat, and you can like see what the premise of the Warfront is. You guys should check that out if you haven't. I don't have the code, but I'm sure someone has it. We have some really interesting stuff coming up. And I hope that I was able to maybe open some eyes, or at least kind of get a different perspective to some of you on this whole Sylvanas and Xal'atath thing. I think the Xal'atath thing, man, as much as I have thoughts about it, and as much as I kind of want to give you a set in stone kind of theory of what's going to happen, I just think we need to see more. I think that Blizzard is teasing us with this stuff because they know we love the Xal'atath stuff, right? They know we love the Old God stuff. They know that we love the Il'gynoth whispers. And I think that some of this is just, they're just toying with us. They're just having fun and seeing how we react to it. And I will say this, that as someone who's part of the community in this regard, like in this kind of section of the lore and stuff, I think this is really cool that Blizzard is kind of playing into our hype. We're kind of, you know, we give them fuel to the fire. They, you know, they give us something cool back, and we always just kind of have something to speculate about and look at. And I think that's really cool. And I'm glad that like we have this. So I appreciate you guys very much. Let me know what you think of this. Again, Sylvanas working for the Burning Legion, I don't think is that far-fetched, man. And to be honest with you, I think that her motives and the way that she wants to do things, I think aligns very well with Sargeras. And, you know, being willing to do those horrible things in order to get to the good end result, right? Sargeras doing everything that he had to do to try to annihilate the Void. But unfortunately, you can't really fight the Void head on. You can't fight it directly. You have to beat it in the game of chess. And it seems like death is that way of beating the Void. So I don't think Sylvanas will serve the Void and do something crazy. I think that she will do something incredible to stop the Void. But we'll have to see. We'll just have to see. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video, please do leave a positive rating. I certainly would appreciate that. And subscribe to my channel for content like this in the future. I know I've been putting out a lot of videos that are about other stuff. Just kind of spreading it out and seeing what maybe you guys like to watch. So that's pretty much it. I appreciate you guys very much. Stay